The Brothers Karamazov, Book 12 and Chapter 11, and the defense lawyer for Dmitri is still speaking like he was in the previous chapter. The argument given away by the title of the chapter is that there is no robbery, which will lead to the next chapter, then there's no murder. And so he says, the defense attorney says, how do we know the 3,000 rubles even exist? Do you remember that the only source for that piece of information is Smerdyakov himself and two other people who were just agreeing with him and who didn't actually see it? So if you're going to doubt any piece of Dmitri's testimony on the grounds that there's no scientific or what we would call physical evidence, then you have to judge your own case by that same standard. And so Smerdyakov is the one that said there was 3,000 rubles. And when did he say it? Well, he said that a couple nights ago. So it's doubtful that he's a truth teller and doubtful that the circumstances can be said to have stayed the same 2 nights before the murder. So if 3,000 rubles doesn't exist, then $3,000 can't be stolen. And again, in the next chapter, if there's no robbery, then why is there a murderer? So this is all told through the unreliable narration of Smerdyakov. Furthermore, the bed was completely made when the police investigated, and the envelope was supposed to have been under the bed. And so if Dmitri was in such a rush to get to the money and tear open that envelope, how was the bed still made? Second of all, if he had already committed the murder and had blood on his hands, how did the bed remain unsullied? And so how could it stay made and how could it stay clean if Dmitri really had robbed and committed the murder? Furthermore, yes, there's a piece of envelope on the floor, but does that mean that Dmitri necessarily stole the money? No, Fyodor Pavlovich was there waiting for his lover to arrive, and he could have easily tore the envelope, the defense attorney says, to show Grushenka the rainbow of bills that he had. And so why did it need to be in an envelope if he had it there? So the defense attorney is aware that he's talking out both sides of his mouth and says, now, don't get me wrong, I don't believe that there were 3,000 rubles, but even if there were 3,000 rubles, then it's still up to a question why we aren't just assuming that Fyodor Pavlovich is the one that took the envelope, the money out of the envelope and threw it on the ground. Furthermore, what's the time frame in which Dmitri could have divided the 3,000 rubles in half? Because he's with people the entire time after the supposed robbery and murder by him. And so when did he have time to divide that 3,000 rubles in half? Because he's in public and he's at a party the entire time until he is arrested. So when did that happen? You need money to say that there has been a robbery and we don't have it. Furthermore, you also remember that Katerina Ivanova changed her testimony. So her version of events aren't exactly reliable. In fact, we can assume that she is a spurned, embarrassed lover who loaned money to her fiance/boyfriend. Now she's in love with his brother, and it's really just embarrassing. So her testimony is not a reliable one. Furthermore, Dmitri does have the honor. He planned to pay her back. Why can we not assume that he doesn't have any honor? Why can we assume that he doesn't have any honor? That doesn't make any sense when you said in your prosecution speech that much like someone testified that the Karamazovs are both. They have the high and the low. And so therefore, why can't Dmitri be an honorable person? Why does he have to be a thief and a murderer? In other words, why are you just assuming the worst in every point of his character? And then if you read his letter, says the defense, it does read like the letter of a drunken man. And how many times have people or children stumbled out of bars or stumbled out of school and yelled something like, I'm going to kill you? And 99.99% of the time, that doesn't happen. And so why do we take Dmitri's letter as this absolute proof when actually when actually it's just reads like the letter of a drunken man. So to close, or not really to close this chapter, but not to close his case, there's no money, therefore there's no robbery, therefore there is no murder. Until you can produce money, then you can't produce the real evidence that there has been a robbery, and without a robbery, there's really no reason for a murder, therefore Dmitri is innocent.